Right, so Dunk, great to see you. Obviously, Survivors has come a hell of a long way in a fairly short space of time. Can you just tell me a little bit about how it all started and what was the real motivation for starting Survivors Manchester?
Yeah, so the easy question to answer, what was the motivation for starting? I recognise that male victims of sexual abuse, rape and sexual exploitation needed help, because I'd needed help. There was no support around. I'd travelled down to Wiltshire on a regular basis from Greater Manchester. And then just thought that's ridiculous. That kind of can't continue. So as soon as I'd sort of got myself into a position where I felt well enough, I began to start having some conversations with some friends, people I knew, a couple of friends who had very professional careers. So a friend of mine who's a barrister, and a friend of mine who's a health commissioner. Who else did I have? I had somebody who I knew from social work, and I just began to start asking them for help, not to help me as a survivor, because I was getting that professional support from therapists, which I was paying for because there was no service, and I was telling these stories and telling people that I needed help to make something happen. And they agreed. So it's, it started with a laptop, which I genuinely don't know where I got it from. A book that I bought from 80 pence from Oxfam on Oxford Road up near Manchester University, which was a building website for dummies. And I kid you not, I built a website using Microsoft Word on the Wizard, and it literally, you did something, click here, next, and it just uploaded a website. And I still got a screen grabs of it. And that like 8 page website just had my musings on it, and it was about people being able to kind of go online and reach out and just know that they're not on their own, because that's what I realized that I needed. I'd put about 250 quid from my pocket. I'd got a pay-as-you-go mobile phone, and I started a helpline, and literally that's kind of where it all started from. More and more people started ringing and emailing, asking for help. We begged, borrowed and stole rooms from different organisations, and then victim support very kindly in Greater Manchester offered me a desk in somebody else's office.
In the broom,
in the broom cupboard, where it was able to begin to start seeing people. So we did a bit of by that point I'd qualified as a psychotherapist, so I started just delivering therapy in between my day job hours, and we just pushed and pushed, and we made ourselves known. I came to you and asked you for some help after learning all about the Prison Project and how our lives are so similar, and we have some journeys that we've both been on, and people like you and others agreed to help, and it felt like we all just rolled our sleeves up and got on with it. We reached out to local CVS's, they gave us some help, read on things on the internet, I got some books, and just how do you be a chief executive of a charity and how do you build a charity? Still really not too sure, other than ask people, and people will often offer to help. So we've gone from that back bedroom stuff to now we have our own centre in the centre of Manchester, like 18, 19 or about to be 20 members of staff. Turnover round about 750,000, although I think this year we will turn over 1 million. In terms of funding, we raise about £40,000 a year from donations, although that's so hard to do with this particular subject. And we have a couple of projects outside of the centre. The main one being currently in HMP Buckley Hall. So we've had a prison service that we run, working with men who have experienced trauma. It's mainly, the majority of the men that we work with are adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And that service has been so successful that it went from 1 day to 3 days. It's about to go to 5 days, and the model is about to be rolled out across the whole of the Northwest prisons.
It's a brilliant piece of work, that, and it's interesting because when you said when you were going to Wiltshire for your conversations to get your help, I was sat in, I think, HMP High Down or HMP Downview doing the same thing to a therapist that had been brought into the prison for me.
Yeah,
and that there hadn't been any other examples of that where you get the one-to-one therapy in prison at the time, and it was group work with just generic group work talking about your triggers for your offending. I was never going to sit in a big group with other people talking about their issues and me sat there talking about having been abused. So having that specific group's great.
And I think, like, going back to the kind of like getting people to help. So what many people don't know is that it was you and I that started Survivors Manchester's prison work when me and you were going into Risley, and we were taking our service from the outside and transporting it inside and crossing our fingers that it worked, and trying to find the right prison governors and the right senior managers to just let us have a go, and literally winging it. And I think that authenticity of people seeing others who have been through experiences and not that have gotten over it, but are functioning really well. I think that then becomes, I want some of that, because I remember that. I remember when I was sat in a group in Wiltshire and I was seeing what this guy was doing, and I was thinking, I need to do that. If he can do it, then I can, and this looks really good, and this looks really healthy, and it's grown. And that's asking people to help you do those things, authentic people. I think it serves really well.
Just sitting through those breakfast group meetings in Risley and talking about our stories, and the amount of guys that would, without fail, at the end of each group.
Me too.
That happened to me. I've just never talked to anyone about it before now, and it's literally those first disclosures that you would get after that. It makes you wonder why this has never happened in prison before. But let's be grateful that it is finally happening.
Exactly. And over the next 12 months, we're going to be installing the outspoken therapy service into all 15 Northwest prisons. One of the things that I've made sure that we will do is that we will have it reviewed as well. So despite the fact I don't really have lots of plans, we've gone from back of a fag packet to 2 sides of A4. We don't need any more than that. I want to make sure that we can capture what we're doing, to make sure that we can share that knowledge across the country in future, because why shouldn't there be support for survivors in every prison?
Which is kind of for the two of you, really, which is about what fuels the kind of leadership you're talking and things, Duncan. So how do you generate the energy and keep that intensity without really putting yourself at risk, if you like, for something which, like you say, is not a very popular subject matter?
I think it's impossible not to put yourself at risk. I think what you have to do is you have to manage the risk and try and mitigate where you can. So for me, every month I see my psychologist. So my psychologist is there for me to be able to and just go, I fucking hate that person, and this person's driving me mad, and how do I get that person and that person to do this? And So we talk about it in a systemic way, a system. So like systemic therapy, like family therapy. So there's ways of thinking about stuff. So every month I see Vicky, and then every month I also see somebody else. So as a therapist, I still have to have clinical supervision, to kind of my license to practice, so to speak, for want of a better word. So the way I work it out is I see one of them at the beginning and I see one of them in the middle. So I'm kind of seeing somebody for an hour about every 2 weeks. So that really helps. But more so than not, it's about recognizing the uncomfortableness, and rather than trying to deny it's there or run away from it, lean into it, because that's where I absolutely 100%. I got this. Lee, do you remember when we did the Martin Robert Hall thing?
Yeah, the psychological edge.
Yeah. So we got I got some money from the NHS, local NHS, because they literally had an underspend and were like, look, can you do a project?
I was thinking you're very
yeah, of
fortunate.
course I can. Yeah. And so we got a performance psychologist who'd worked with like Team GB and footballers, and judo springs to mind. They're doing something with the Olympics, and he did a class for I think 10 weeks with a group of survivors, and we just learn about positive psychology, positive thinking, and
rewriting your script.
Yep. And they're all like kind of really core. So they're more kind of like transactional analysis in a mental health nursing kind of way. But what he was doing is he was kind of teaching us about that leaning into something rather than leaning out of something. And I always remember him talking about like the runner. So you get somebody like a strength and conditioning coach, you get a nutritionist, you get all these people that are there to push and push and push and push, because if the athlete's left alone, oh, it's just a bit too cold to go out and practice today. You need someone behind you saying, oi, up and out, because like effectively, that's what he did for us psychologically. And I always remember him talking about, if you're sat in comfortable, you'll just stay there, because you're just happy. You'll just sit there like a pig in the proverbial. Whereas if you're uncomfortable, you'll try and get out of that as quickly as possible. You'll find solutions. Now, if the solution isn't the right solution, you'll run out and then fall back into it. And what you begin to do is you begin to learn, like the athlete, that this bit does hurt a little bit, but it's okay, because the reward at the end is going to be phenomenal. And he talked about this one particular athlete who he asked her, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to make podium. She didn't say, I want to do gold, I want to do silver. She said, I want to make podium. So he goes, okay. So she's in the semi-finals and she wins, which means that she's got bronze. She's made podium. In her next fight, to get the bronze or the silver, she lost, so she got bronze. And I said, why didn't she keep going? And he said, because she'd achieved. Because in her mind, she'd got out of the uncomfortable into the comfortable, and she was happy. That's where she was. And it's always stuck with me, this idea of, yeah, I'm gonna stay in uncomfortable as much as possible and slowly get to comfortable, because that journey is where the best learning comes from, and it means I won't end up in the really uncomfortable again.
Brilliant.